Hello, everybody. Hi, Chris. How are
Hello,
you doing?
folks. I'm good. I'm good. Let's kick it off, yeah?
Yes, I'm super excited because we have so much to cover. So, welcome everyone. And just before you just kick it off, Chris, everyone in the chat, please ask questions as we go along, and we will answer all of those questions. It's very exciting. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, so my name is Chris Noring. With me, I've got Debbie O'Brien. We are super excited to talk about this series called Let's Learn MCP, or as is also known, Model Context Protocol. So, Debbie, you are a bit of a whiz when it comes to Playwright, right?
Just a little bit, yes. Yes. When it comes to Playwright, obviously that's Playwright for testing, and you all should be testing your applications, of course. But now we have like Playwright MCP, so it's even more exciting. And have you used the Playwright MCP, Chris?
I have. I'm honestly very impressed by it, and there's actually a little demo in here. So you all who are joining us on the stream, you'll be able to see just how cool it is. And Debbie, you'll be able to roast me to say, "Hey, Chris, you can do this so much better." But yeah, you should all look forward to that element of the stream. So our agenda today, folks, is to talk about what is MCP, because it's a little bit confusing, if I'm honest, right? I mean, we all started learning this thing, and there's many moving parts. I mean, don't you agree with it, Debbie? It's MCP
Well, it's
once you start
very
out,
new still, right? It's like,
right?
I mean, literally we're talking about since November. So if you're sitting there going, I really haven't started getting started with MCPs, don't worry, because that's exactly, you're in the right place right now. And it's fine to only just be getting started now. But there's so many cool things you can do, and we want to make this really easy for you to understand. And we're even going to, I will go to the agenda, but yes, what is MCP? We're going to simplify it for you. So stay put.
Yeah, doesn't that sound fantastic, right? If you're on day one of learning MCP, you're just in the right spot. So we'll definitely go through some MCP features so you have a good understanding of what this protocol is, because it is a protocol and it has a set of features. And Debbie will also showcase some awesome project building. So you'll definitely see more
Live.
than just slides today, right? Live, I should add. Yes, for sure. And live coding is a bit scary, right?
And yeah,
So
but I also want to say, Chris, because I was always scared about building an MCP server because it all sounds like there's so many moving parts and it's so complicated. It's really easy. And I want to really show people that anybody can create an MCP server. And if you just stay along till the end, you will see, it's in a couple of minutes, we're going to create one. And you'll be like, wow, is that it? That's it.
mhm.
One file.
Yep, exactly. That's really the thing with MCP servers, right? They're not really that complicated to create. And it doesn't really matter if it's a very simple tool or it's a more complex tool trying to wrap an API. It all stays simple. Yeah, so we got a little shout out here, a call to action. We want you to go have a look either during the stream or after it. Go into this GitHub repo and check out the resources for slides, for code, and for some other loveliness in there. Yeah, moving on. So agentic coding, right? So a lot of you have heard maybe of agents and agentic, and you're a bit confused. To be honest, we're all a bit confused when it comes to AI and its definitions, right there?
Well, I kind of figured it out the other day.
Yeah?
Because because it's like when you're building something, right? Sometimes you just want to ask for some help, some ideas. You want to just like say, hey, I'm trying to like fix the filtering on my site, and you press the ask mode and you just get some information back. And then sometimes you do edit, and that's just like making a couple of changes. But sometimes you're like, you know what, agent, just do it for me, vibe along, let's get this work done. And that's what agent mode is about. It's like having somebody work with you, and like you're driving, you're in the seat of the driver, and this co-pilot is beside you. And I have got so much work done. I have never ever been so excited about programming in so many years. I absolutely just love programming again. It's amazing.
Yeah, you can hear that excitement on her voice, right? And I'm honestly equally excited. So what you're looking at, exactly what Debbie was saying, is the agent mode for GitHub Copilot. And what you're seeing here is how this conversation starts with a prompt, an instruction from you, and then it's able to digest, have a think about it, and then come up with different instructions for how to actually break down this problem and solve it. And that also includes running a command for you in the terminal, which is pretty cool. And I would say that's one of the big wins, because who can remember these terminal commands anyway, right?
Never.
Never. So and good news is we never have to ever again. So here's a few questions that we need to take with us as we move on to the stream. How do we provide real-time context, and what is even context? Do you have a good answer to that one, Debbie?
Yeah, it's like when my husband the other day, he was getting crazy at AI because he was asking it what the weather was like, and it said in Palma it was raining and 15 degrees, and he's like, "We're in the middle of a heat wave. What are you doing?" I was like, "Because it doesn't know what day it is, so it's just gonna like try and guess and so it doesn't sometimes have real time data, right? Real time context. It doesn't know, so you have to help it along." And that's like I'm kind of going in and spoiling the kind of spoiler of what an MCP does. But think about that, right? You need an app. You need something like, and if I say her name, Alexa, she might start doing something, right? So I won't say it. But you need something like one of those to actually ask the weather, and they'll be able to get it. And that's the problem that we have when it comes to AI. It can't do all the things we want it to do, and we really want it to do so much these days.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, for sure. There's everything from personal assistants to helping us in our editor. So you're right. I think there's never been a more exciting time to be alive as a developer or even human, I would argue, right? Everyone's workflow is being improved and augmented is what I think people are saying. And context is one thing, bringing your own data, but also there are all these things that we want to get help with because, some things are just tedious and slow. How do I
Like
connect to a database?
testing.
How do I yeah, testing. So actually, I had a conversation the other day, and they said, "You know what, Chris? I love GitHub Copilot because I haven't written a test in forever." Like I'm like, yes, exactly
I
what I want
know.
to hear, right?
And I love
So
Playwright, but also I want people to be able to write tests without having to actually learn code and understand, and to be able to just write tests in natural language. And I've got a couple of videos on my channel about this where we just say, can you create a test for this part of my website? And it just goes ahead and tests it, and I can watch it in real time. And it's absolutely insane. Like it's incredible.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm excited about testing, but there's no comparison to you, Deb. I think you're the most excited test person I know. But so here's the thing. So when it comes to MCP and the arrival of this protocol, there's a reason why it came right now. Is because honestly, everyone is overwhelmed because agents need to talk to a lot of API endpoints and a lot of static data, and you got this mishmash of things and integration chaos. And the reason it's chaos is because of course everyone's using a different schema, a different protocol, nothing is standardized, right? So it makes it very, very painful when an agent should be using features from different places. So then Model Context Protocol suddenly just says, well, you know what? If you want to know about features, here's how you describe features. And I just love that about Model Context Protocol. Everyone does it the same way. No more spending money, no more spending a bunch of time just building integration before you can even build your app. I find that super cool. I love the fact that we have a standard. So you might wonder, okay, what do you even mean, Chris? Well, think about it this way. Many of you have used, Copilot or ChatGPT, so you're using this agentic environment already. You're used to using prompts. But you all know how limited that is, right? Deb, you mentioned that how LLMs are very limited. They're missing your context, that real-time update of data. So the way we solve that is by adding functions to the LLM. We let the LLM know about these functions that goes to my weather app or go to the stock market, wherever it needs to go. And we call all of that function calling. And that's great, right? Because now we are making the LLM better than it was before. But what does that mean in the context of MCP? Well, MCP actually allows you to place these functions in different places. So before you were building an app and all the functions was in that app. But imagine now that you're outsourcing all of these functions. So you might have an MCP server running locally on your machine or it runs remotely. Okay, that sounds pretty
Yeah.
cool, right? But here's when it becomes super cool, right? Because at this point, you got functionality that someone else has built. Someone else has built an API with flights or hotels or banks, and maybe you build the one that goes to your local file system. So, delegation, right? You don't need to solve all those problems by yourself. So, Deb, do you have like a favorite scenario when I mention all of this? Different servers, MCP, you know,
Well, it's
you
it's like,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's like Playwright, for example. And what is Playwright? It's browser automation. Imagine you trying to build that yourself. Why would you need to? Because we've built it. So we're giving you the tools to use to be able to go and automate the browser and get it to do things like test your website, or like I used it to go shopping as well. It's kind of cool. But then there's other MCP servers for like PayPal, right? You don't want to be doing that and building that. You just want to go ahead and use that. And then I built one for the weather because that's something that I just want to do. And it's kind of cool for me. So yes, you have to have like your use cases and you build little things for yourself, but you want to use the ones that are out there. GitHub, for example, is another amazing one.
Yeah, 100%. So what I wanted to highlight on this particular slide is the fact that you as a user, you are not interacting directly with these servers, but you are going through an LLM and you're using prompts to book your
Mhm.
hotel, to
In
book your
natural
flight.
language.
Yeah, natural language, right? Super
Mhm.
cool, right? We used to be very programmatic and say, I want to talk to get flights or get hotels or create bank record or whatever. But now everything is natural language, which is super, super cool. Like we're really unlocking the agentic web. So this statement here at the bottom is a bit controversial because if this is the first thing you see about the MCP, when someone says it's like USB-C but for AI, I
Confusing.
mean, I was like scratching my head seeing that because I was thinking back, what was even USB, right? I mean, it
Mhm.
was this format that allowed everyone to plug in things to your computer or your TV or whatever, right? But it's like, what does that even mean for AI? But so far, though, we talked about the MCP protocol, everyone using the same standard. So in that way, it becomes the USB because or USB-C because now
You plug
everyone
in
is in
Playwright, plug
agreement.
in GitHub, plug in Figma, you're plugging in, just you're constantly just plugging, but you don't actually run out of all these plugs, right? You can keep plugging.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you go to Model Context Protocol, you type GitHub, you're going to see hundreds of servers that is already built by other people, other companies. So it's like Lego blocks. Like I'm a big fan
Mhm.
of Lego. Are you?
Yes, yes, and my kids as well.
That's good. You should always transfer it to the next generation, right? But
Yes.
so model context protocol, right? Created by Anthropic, but I would think it's fair to say that Microsoft has something to do with it as well. I mean, we're definitely great partners here in documentation and making this a thing, right?
Authentication.
So yeah, education, right? So we love the fact that the AI community has just dove into this and just loving it, right? So we're evolving together. So we're trying to say to you all, you are in the right stream because you have every right to be excited about the fact that we are now bringing in the standard MCP, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, so there are some parts of MCP, right, that we need to know about. So one of them is host, another one is clients, and the third one is server. So what is the difference?
Chris, this is always so confusing when someone says hosts, clients, and servers. My brain just blows away. I just like, what are you on about? So I'm going to break it down into like if I was explaining this to my kids. Hosts, let's forget the name hosts. What you're using, the tool you're using to code or to talk to something, right? To the LLM. So I use VS Code, but you might be using a Copilot chat or something or whatever, right? But that's the where the AI lives, basically, right? And you can
Yep,
correct me,
yep.
Chris, if I'm wrong. This is just me simplifying it. And then your client is a horrible word. That's just the agent. That's Copilot, right? In my case, it's
Hmm.
Copilot, but you could be using something else, of course. But that's the agent that you're going to ask it the questions to get the answers. And then the
Yeah,
servers are the superpowers. And that's where the
yeah,
LLM, the Copilot, basically says, oh my God, I've got superpowers now because I can automate a browser. I can use Playwright to automate a browser. This Playwright server, I can use the GitHub server to create a pull request. I can use the Figma server to pull down a design. And the servers are basically your tools, your superpowers that you're giving to your Copilot that is sitting inside your editor. Does that make sense?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great explanation, right? And what I usually try to do with people who've never heard about MCP before is like just ignore the host part for now and focus on servers. Servers have features, they have capabilities, and you need a way to talk to servers, which is clients. And exactly what you said, Deb. Like if you put a client inside of VS Code, then VS Code is going to initiate that conversation with you, and that's really what makes a host a host. So yeah, I would just tell people, okay, focus on servers, and then build out from there, right?
Yeah.
Before it becomes too complicated. But I have some amazing demos, and I'd love your take on this, Deborah, because I don't think I've shown you these demos before.
No,
And
I'm so excited.
bring out the roast, right? So yeah, so there's some practical examples that I think is really going to work for people. So one, this works really well for me, documentation, right? We all know what it's like. We have a separate external monitor for documentation. We have one window for our IDE and maybe a third monitor even that shows something else. And then I'm thinking Playwright, right? Amazing end-to-end testing, but also automation. And then you have your own file system. I don't know how many times I've brought up Explorer if I'm on Windows or whatever that app is called on Mac OS. But it's like I always have to go into different tabs, different programs, and I don't really like it. I want everything to be in one place, and I don't want my neck to hurt from moving to one monitor and the next, right? So if you haven't heard about it before, Microsoft Docs actually are now an MCP server. And I lost my mind when I realized that this was happening. Do you remember when they announced the news, Deb?
I did. And it was like, how can that be? Like, how can you put all this information in one place, right?
Right, right. And I'm like, you people, you must have been working on this for months and you didn't tell me anything. It's like, here, Chris, here's an MCP server. And I'm like, yes, right, finally. So how does that even work? Well, imagine now this. I know you don't know so much about MCP so far, but here's one thing you do need to remember is that every time you add any kind of server that you want to talk to, you need to put it in an MCP JSON file, because this is the way that environments like Visual Studio Code, for example, is able to find where your server is at. So what you're doing here is adding an entry. You give it a server name, you call that whatever you want, and then you tell VS Code, where does that thing live? What URL can I find it at? Now, this is for external servers, right? And I know, Deb, you will explain this a bit more, but because MCP server can also run on your local machine, and then the configuration is slightly different. But the point is, this is all we need to do to tell VS Code, here's where you find features. So
And
once we've pointed
Chris,
this out, yeah, go ahead.
You know that most of like the MCP servers now in their READMEs have like a little button that you can click on and it installs for you. So you don't even need to worry about this file. And also in the like extensions panel, we have a new section and you can just like click on install buttons. So this is great for everyone to know this, but there's also an really easy. I love pressing buttons. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, 100%. That's such a great tip, right? Because as you said, you can install it once and you're done with it. If you do it this way, this is great in development mode, but because you want to try things. And I like to try things until they break. So here I've started the server. It has one tool. So now I want to go into my tools list, make sure that the server is properly connected and show me that one tool. So let's scroll a bit more. Okay, there it is. So now it has one tool, some kind of doc search. Love it. So what does that mean? So now that it's connected, I can use the agent mode as part of GitHub Copilot and start prompting. So now I'm asking for AI Foundry. That's what we call all our AI products. And I just ask it for, what do you know, right? Which is a bit scary. Imagine going to Docs or Learner just saying, show me everything about X. And you're like, oh my God, I got
bring your
400
window over
responses.
so we can see it. Make your window wider.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I can. It's as wide as it can be, right? Can you still see it? Or
the chat should be able to go wider. Just like pull the chat across. Should work. If not, don't worry.
Let's see. Yeah, let's continue. Yeah, so here's the thing. It's giving you this initial response, right? Which may be what you need, or you're a beginner and you're completely overwhelmed. So what you do at that point. Whoop, sorry, let's continue from here. So you've typed things. Let's go. Yeah, okay. So you've gotten that initial response, but here's the problem with that initial response is it's too much. I'm a beginner. Just give me the the very first doc. Right, the first doc, the first module, the first wherever. So
this is
which
a great
one
question.
do I start
Where do I start? Yeah, this is so many people ask us. Where do I start?
Right. So, and that's why I love about the fact that you're now talking to the agent. You have that response, and you can just format that to your heart's content. So hopefully
this is
now
so much nicer than searching through documentation.
Right. So I don't think I've gone to Microsoft Docs since I got the MCP server, to be honest.
Nobody reads Docs, but now they're going to read
exactly.
Too
long didn't read, right? Yeah. And now I'm about to show you a demo, and this is where I really expect Deb to roast me because, hey, Chris, you don't know anything about this, but hopefully she's going to be nice today.
No, I'm sure you do. I'm going to be very nice.
Right. So here we have a Playwright MCP, right? So here's how you can find that server in the first place. If you want to go to the GitHub repo, you want to read more about it. But what's my use case? So in my case, I want to know, how do I get from London Paddington, where our Microsoft office is, and how do I get to the airport, in this case, Heathrow? So let's go with this demo. And here you can see how I have connected also this server, or you can do what Deb said before by installing it. But so in this case, I'm just pointing out how do I get access to it with MPX and Playwright. And once I've done that, I'm kind of ready for business, but I also need to run it. But it already says running, so I don't need to do that. But so what I can do now is to say, to travel for London, plan a route between Paddington and Heathrow. And now what's the super cool part here is that Playwright is going to investigate the page, right? It doesn't know anything about it, but it starts crawling and finding input
Run
elements
navigate to a
and drop
URL.
down,
Love it. Love it. Running click.
right? So yeah, I'm just waiting for it to do its business. And you can see how all of these steps is asking for human in the loop, but there is actually a setting that you can set to make it just automatically call all the tools. So it's I think it's worth talking about security, because if you trust the server, by all means set that setting. If you don't trust the server, then you want to do per tool basis, I would say. Do you agree with that guidance, Deb?
Yeah, it's like, especially when you're like developing locally as well, I just say allow all. I'm a big fan, especially for demos, of just allow it all, and especially when
Yeah.
creating videos, because I'm just like so impatient.
Yeah.
But you should remove that later when you finish your demo, because you don't know, if you don't trust the server, you might install one and you don't know what it's going to do, and you're allowing it. And it's nice to know what it does, but with Playwright, I know what it does, so I'm very confident. So yeah.
There you go. You heard it from the source. So what we got on here is a response, right? So what it's done is to go through the user interface of this web page, and it's was able to locate all the input fields, click all the buttons, and now we're saying, show me a summary of this search. So now it's actually going to do the actual search now that it understands how to do it. So remember that Playwright didn't know how to interact with this page, but it figured it out, which is super cool. So now it's doing the search, it's giving me a response, it's going to tell me, well, Chris, you can take the bus, you can take the underground. And I'm like, I've taken the bus before. I'm not sure I'm going to trust that option, right? So I want to filter down whatever this response is. So do you have a preference, Deb, when it comes to going to the airport? Do you trust buses?
No, I hate buses. If we're going to London, I'd rather like just, get the tube, and I'd go to Heathrow all the time. It's just easier.
Yeah, honestly, I have a helicopter platform close to where I live. So I'm like, I want to take that helicopter. One day I'm going to do it. So you can see here now how Playwright was super cool. It's going to do things for you. But I'm curious if you can see any improvements we could be doing on this.
Totally, Chris. You never showed the browser window. It must have opened in your other screen, because normally Playwright opens up the browser for you. You can watch it actually clicking and do it, which is what I like to do, because I like watching what it does, right? So that was the bit that was missing for me, and that it will open up the browser and you'll be able to see it. And also, I just wanted to point out, you might have saw one of the tool calls was a page snapshot. And what the hell is that, right? That is Playwright's way of going to your website and getting the accessible tree of your website. And what it does is then it has in context everything in the page. And that's how it was able to make the good decisions and knowing what it was doing, because it clicked, it got to where it needed to go. And then it basically just got the page snapshot of everything it needs. And I was like, right, I have all the information. Now I can tell you which is the best way. But yeah, a great demo. I think it's a really good use case, but that's exactly, Playwright MCP can be used for so many cool things.
So what you're telling me is essentially magic, right?
Yeah, but you didn't show the magic. I like watching the magic.
yeah, I know, but a good magician never shows his tricks, right?
That's true.
So I got one more demo for you, folks, right? So I want to be able to interact with my files. I don't want to bring up the Explorer to do this. So there's actually an MCP server for this as well, but here be dragons, right? Because you don't want to give it full access to your machine, right? And you might even want to consider running this as part of a Docker container to really ensure it doesn't reach anything sensitive.
Just so you don't delete something. I would delete something by accident.
Yeah, I know, right? So you have to be very careful. So for that reason, I have now on line 36 here, or even line 41, I've given it access to only C:temp. So that's the only thing it can destroy or mess up, because, exactly what Deb said, we're going to stumble on a key and woof goes all the files, right? So here we are identifying the file system MCP server, but we are saying on line 41, you can only do stuff with C:temp.
In the temp folder, basically, right?
Temp folder, right? So, but if you want to add more folders because you trust it, by all means do that. But just remember to do this filtering in the first place. So I'm actually going to be a little bit cheeky here. I'm actually going to try to break the promise. I'm going to try to go into directories it doesn't have access to, because, you want to test it works. So I'm going to say, what about the users folder? That's a good one, right? No, it actually obeys me. It
Ah,
says, sorry, Chris, I can't access users. I'm like, tried to hack you, but I failed. So
good.
now I'm telling it to list content of the directory. I'm still in my VS Code editor, right? I haven't shown
Hmm.
any separate monitors or any separate programs. And it's able to tell me about, here, Chris, here's your files. But lazy as I am, I want to summarize information. But I'm also very paranoid because I do not trust an AI. Do you trust an AI and the response?
Obviously, I do not.
What do
So
you
you
think
have
then?
to check. You have to check
Yeah?
everything always, always, always. I really want it to be perfect all the
Oh
time, but
yeah,
it's just not
yeah,
there
yeah,
yet.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I know, and that's why I'm telling it. Show me the calculation, right? Because if I don't see that calculation, I think you're just fibbing, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
exactly, which is
telling it to
nice.
show me the calculation, and I'm like, oh, okay, right. So now I'm saying, oh, what if you create another file for me? But so all of this is super cool, right? You can literally just interact with whatever using prompts. But of course, if you want to do it low tech, you can go back to your Explorer and do all the things. But I prefer to live in 2025 where everything is prompt. But yeah, super cool. So that's actually the demos I had, because I can believe all of you are itching right now. It's like, show me code. I want the code. So I'm not gonna abstain from that any longer, but I'm gonna leave the reins over to Deb so you can all show them your environment and let's do some coding, right?
Yes, I am going to put you over another screen, and there was a couple of questions in there, and I hope we answered that question about real use cases. I would also kind of just say a use case that I was using the Playwright MCP server for was filling out forms. Forms are boring. I now have a prompt, and I can just change it. So when we do a Playwright live session every month or so, we just have to change a couple of minor things, and even like the thumbnail image, the date and the title changes, but all like I'm still the same person, and a lot of things the same. So I basically automate it, and I just press play, and it just does it, and even uploads a file. It's amazing. That's one thing. I also did shopping with it just for fun, but I don't think that was a great use case. But it did find me a good deal. But there's so many use cases. So yeah, I think we should just automate everything that's boring and repetitive and that you don't want to do. Everything that you do want to do,
Yeah,
keep doing.
yeah, 100%. I mean, we've been automating since we were developers, right? So this is just a new way of doing it. But I kind of like the fact that I don't need to remember TypeScript or Java or SQL. I can just type a prompt, right? So we really live in very interesting age.
Exactly. They become unimportant now, like, syntaxes and things like that. We don't need to do that anymore. Um, so I hope that we have covered what are MCPs. I hope you now have a good indication of how to use MCPs and have some ideas there. And we just showed a few. There's so many, which is very, very, very exciting. And I think we should dive right in to sharing my screen. And remember, I showed you where Chris goes into those JSON files. I don't even do that. I just use the extensions tab here in VS Code, and you can see I have GitHub installed, Microsoft Docs as well, Playwright, the weather one, which we're going to build. We're going to build a weather server. This is so exciting. And there's a little icon here. I just wanted to show people this because I think this is really cool. And basically what it does is it always opens it up on the wrong screen, but that's okay because I can pull it over. There you go. This is amazing. I don't know if you've seen this. This is new, Chris.
Mm.
Yeah, and then you can just like install Playwright, install GitHub, and scroll
Ooh.
down here. There's some really good ones that I really want to try out, like PayPal. Does that mean I can just get the LLM to pay for things? I don't know. Create invoices, process payment. This is cool. I want to try that out. So
Yeah.
definitely check that out. How did I get there? I just went into my extensions tab here and I clicked on this little icon here. That's it. Easy, right? It's
This is
one
super
click.
cool, right? I get so many
Yeah.
questions from people saying like, "What are a trusted list of MCP servers?" Right? Because
Oh,
if everyone's
yeah.
building it, you can't really trust it, and security is top of mind for all of us, right? So I love the fact that you showed me something they can trust this, right?
That's very true. And we can just click on install Playwright and click open. And that's it. Like just press that button and installed. That's so super simple. And then if you want to start the server, you would just click on that little icon there and start the server. And now I've got Playwright
Ooh.
running, right? That's That's how
Ooh.
easy it is. So I want people to walk away. If you don't want to build your own server, I get it, because maybe you don't. But if you just want to use MCP servers, it is really easy to use them. I want you to just take that away and just play with Playwright. If that's the only MCP server you install today, play with Playwright and get it to go to a URL and do something for you. Okay, but we're going to build a server today.
Oh yeah, looking forward.
This is actually on GitHub, and it's public and it's open source, so you can all go along and check it out and work along with me. So I think Katie might bring up that URL there for the audience so they can kind of follow along if you want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk us through how to build an MCP server. And I'm literally going to like run through part 1, part 2, and part 3. And hopefully we get it done in the time that we get it done. This is not difficult, and I want to explain why I'm building this first before I run through this, because I am in VS Code and I'm absolutely obsessed about the weather, and I basically just want to ask what the weather's like. Now maybe I can actually show you. I'm going to just open tool. I'm going to turn off all my tools just to give you an idea of why. Let's turn off Playwright as well, right? We have no tools.
That's a lot of tools.
I am a tool addict. So it's very important to control and turn on and off. If you get those error messages of like too many tools, I'm the one. So I'm hoping we're live. So I'm hoping that if I just put what's the weather like in Palma, let's see what it tells me. Again, this is AI, and I get different things each time. I don't have the capability to check the current weather in Palma. And you're like, oh, come on. Now I need to go and visit the weather service, like weather.com, or use a weather app. I don't want to do that. But look, it's seen that in my code base, it has an MCP server. It's kind of hinting it's going, but didn't you just build one? But if you did that, and if you put that prompt into your agent and asked it, it can't get the weather for you. And that, and it's not just weather. What time is it? What's the time zone? There's a lot of things, right? It can't do. So I want to give it the power to do it. And that's what we're going to build.
And even if it had responded at that point, I would question is like, from when? Is it 2022 or is it today? I have questions if it's actually able to answer the weather.
Exactly. Do you want me to like jump to the end in a way to just sneak peek of what it would do after we build it? Should I show you?
Ooh, do you have something?
I show you. Let's show you. Well, I just turned the tool on because I've already built this, but we're going to build it again. But I just want to show you the difference of, right, let's find my tool. I could just do search. That's Microsoft Docs. Where is my weather server? There's my weather server. This is my weather server. I've only got one tool, get weather. And now if I put that same question in, because I'm using the MCP server that me and you are going to build right now, what is the difference? What can it do? I can help you find the current weather in Palma. Now, there's what you showed, Chris, about like, it's asking me, can I run this tool? The city is Palma, because I put Palma in. It was able to extract from my natural English. It was able to extract the city name. And I press continue. It is now going to tell me the weather in Palma.
It's so amazing how we take that for a given, right? That is able to parse out that information. Because the longest time we're using all these weird Python libraries to make that happen. We're like, yeah, of course it parses the information.
Exactly.
For me, it's still so like that.
Exactly. And I can guarantee you that is correct. It is hot. It looks like a typical hot summer day in Palma. And this is the nice thing, right? I'm just getting back natural English language, right? And we're going to show you now how we're building this, but we're not going to do any work basically in data extraction and, like getting from JSON and doing all this. It's just the AI can do all that work for us. And that's the great thing about this weather server or about MCP servers, is that we do minimal work and AI does all the hard part of extracting what it needs. So are we excited? Is everybody in the chat excited? Let's go ahead and build it. So if you have the repo already open, you can go ahead and do this with me. I am going to delete this whole file. Should I just do that? I hate doing that. It's a terrible idea. Let's delete the whole file, right?
All right. Got it.
Are you saying don't do that because you don't trust me, do you? You're like, no, duplicate it. Let's duplicate it. Go on. All right, let's duplicate it. He doesn't trust me. Okay. We have a copy. We have it.
It's more, I don't trust machines. That's more like.
And you put the file server MCP in your machine and you don't trust your.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first thing is I already have a folder open and I've seeded in it, but you could go ahead and do that because you won't have this part. So go ahead and do that. And then this is just creating the main TS file. We need one file only. Okay, so that's the main TS file that we have here. And then what we do have to do is configure the package JSON to make sure we're using the type of module, because the MCP SDK uses modern JavaScript modules, so we need to enable them. So if we go to our package JSON, make sure we have type module in there. That's important. Okay, let's go back to part 1. Now, Chris, stop me at any moment if I'm going too fast, because I know I can get a bit excited. Okay.
Honestly, only one comment here is that I love the fact that code spaces exist. It's lightning fast installing dependencies. It's like this. I don't know if you love code spaces, but I'm like such a big, preacher for it.
It is great. I don't use it enough. I should use it so much more, definitely. Okay, cool. So the only things you need to install are the MCP SDK. Now, I didn't bring up the repo, but I could totally go and search for that, which is MCP server. Let me find it from Anthropic Model Context Protocol, right? So just so that you know that you can find this. Now, have you ever found the SDKs down here? We're doing like TypeScript, but you could be doing any other language, right? But just in case you I don't know, lose the wrapper, you can just go along here and find it. And this is like what I'm installing. I'm just copy here. So you could copy from this, or you can take from our tutorial, but that's where I'm getting this in. So npm install in your terminal. Again, I've already got that done, so I'm not going to do it. And then npm install Zod. This is just a library for data validation. Okay. And that just makes it easier to input the things. So if you're following along, you should have installed those 2 packages, and then your dependencies will look like this. Again, I'm just doing the boring stuff here because this is the boring stuff. I want to get into the juicy stuff. Okay. Now let's go back to my part 1, and we are set up. Let's go to part 2.
Nice.
Building. Let's do it. So maybe I can put this side by side. Let's do that. And let's close it here, and let's our main. Perfect. And let's close that. So we can close here. All right. So we're building along. The first thing we need to do, and this is important, and I'm just going to copy and paste, and you're just literally going to watch me copy and paste, which might seem a bit boring, but don't worry. Our imports, right? We need to import the MCP server. We need to import the stdio server transport, although this automatically gets imported for us when we start to use it. But you can go ahead and copy that in. But that's basically how we deliver the data. But I'll go and touch that a little bit more in a few minutes. And then we're importing Z from Zod. They're the 2 packages that I installed. So just focus on these for now. Okay. And then we're going to create the server instance. Now, these are not highlighted here because I'm not using them. That's why they're in VS Code is shouting at me. So look at this. I'll actually type this out so you can see. I'm basically saying const server. I love how Copilot just I know what you want. Okay, go on, tap across. Right.
I've seen the future, right?
Yes. And it's no, that's not what I wanted. And then we say name, right? So the name that we want is weather server, and we could call this let's learn weather. We could call it whatever we want, right? But let's put it, and I'll put it a little bit different so you can see that this is really me typing it. Weather server, and then version. That's, do you care about versions?
I mean, you should have a version, right? And hopefully you're not breaking too many things, but I think it's good. It's very defensive. 0.01. I feel like that's the very first entry. That's good.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter for this local server, so don't worry too much about it. Now, next edit suggestions is going a bit crazy, and I want to type on my own. If you found out about this, this is really cool. I can just go ahead and snooze this. I'm going to just snooze next edit suggestions. We'll leave code completions on. And we'll just
so what's super cool about this feature, next edit suggestion, is when I want to change stuff. Like, let's say I add a tool, right?
Shall I leave
then
it
I
on?
add a very similar tool. Yeah, well, you can shut it off for now, but maybe when we add the second tool, let's enable it, because it's super cool once you start editing.
All right, that's good. But sometimes I just want to be in the flow. So
I love that nice
news. Okay, so now we're going to, basically we've just got a server. That's our first server, right? Now we need to define our first tool. Okay, this is the fun part. This is what you called a function. This is all it is. A tool is just a function. So we're going to call it a name. This is another thing. We haven't standardized this yet, dashes or underscores, but let's just leave it a dash. Maybe it should be an underscore, but you can call it whatever you want. Get weather.
Yeah, totally.
And then this is what the LLM is going to read back to you, right? As in when it says, do you want me to use this tool, right? So we can give it a nice description so it knows what tool it's going to do. Tool to get the weather from a city. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's super important that this is descriptive, right? Because once it starts having 5 tools, 10 tools, 20 tools, it's going to do wrong unless this is very good.
Exactly.
Is that correct spelling on weather?
Oh, did I spell the weather wrong? Sure, I probably did.
Yeah, not there, but the other one.
Oh, I did. Look at that. You see?
Yeah.
And that's because I turned off next edit suggestions. Otherwise, that would have picked
There
it
you
up.
go.
Yeah.
Luckily, you have one of these backseat coders with you, right? You can point at everything.
Okay. And then the one thing that I want to get is the city. Okay. So I want to make sure that we get the weather for a city. So then I'm going to put in this z.string.
And this is from Zod, right?
This is from Zod. So Z from Zod. Okay. And you know what? This is so hard doing all this.
Oh, yeah. That's
edit.
a good practice. Sometimes I actually forget that to describe parameters, but you totally should, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise, these are hints that show up for other developers who's trying to consume your server. So if you skip this, like people are going to be like, I don't know what this parameter is.
Exactly. So that's it, my city.
Uh-huh.
And then I just need to do my async. I always spell this word wrong. It's so hard to spell.
Yeah.
This is me trying to code without any help from Copilot, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
I have never.
Yeah, you notice how painful it is, right? You're
painful.
so used to AI.
Oh my god!
It's like I have to type.
I can do this. I know what I'm doing. I promise. So
Totally.
we're passing in the city, right? That's the city that the user is going to give us, and then we want to return some content.
And should be mentioned also that the contract here is quite important because you actually need to call it content and type text and have a text property, because otherwise you're going to get very angry red squigglies. Exactly.
So this is really important. And then the type is text. That's exactly what we're giving. And what we're returning, is this right? Turning back the text? Yes. And then the text is basically, now this is where I do my, what do you call them? Literals, the weather, because I want to do some dynamic data in here, right? So the weather in the dollar city.
Yep.
Right? Because that's the dynamic part is sunny. Now you're kind of looking at me going, people, you're saying, Debbie, what are you doing? Like, you're just going to tell, yes, I'm basically building an MCP server that tells you that the weather is sunny in every single city in the world that you input.
Yep.
Bear with me. I'm going to do this static data first, and then I'll show you how to connect that to an API. Just bear with me. This is super boring, but this is super easy. So this is my my function, my tool. That's it. That's it, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't really matter if this thing is calling, an API or if it's very static. It doesn't get more complex than this. That's the cool part, I think.
This is simple. Now, the only thing we need to do is we need to communicate. We need to set up how our server communicates with the AI clients. And that's what we call the transport. So this is our bus example.
Oh, yeah.
This is our method of getting somewhere.
I think you mentioned that you were going to explain what a transport is and why this transport, right?
Exactly. So we're going to use this stdio. And again, this is also kind of really complicated, but basically it uses your terminal's input output for communication. So it's perfect for local development, but you might want to be doing it over not local development, and then you could use a different one, right? Standard in. It's just like standard in, standard out. In, out.
So, Deb, can we increase the font size a little bit? I think people are asking for it to be a bit bigger.
Oh my gosh.
It's like Control Plus.
Whoa, now I can't see. All right, okay. It's just blown up in my face. Let me go back here. There we go. Right. So now basically we just need the new standard transport, but this is a function, right? And then all we need to do is say the server, our server that we created, is going to connect. Look, I can do this. I can type. I know how to type. And maybe if there's spelling mistakes, it will pick it up. Okay, so our server dot connect transport. Now, this is basically all we've done.
Yeah. You
This
know,
is
I just wanted to have a film reference here because I feel like I'm in the movie Wall-E. Feels like for every day that goes, I'm going to turn into this giant blob of a person that no longer knows how to type or walk or anything, right? I don't know if you folks have seen Wall-E, but, you know, it feels like it. It feels like I'm being slowly cooked in AI, you know?
because before this was so important, knowing every single syntax, making sure you know how to close a bracket. But this is
Okay.
tedious, and we shouldn't have to remember how to close brackets. It should just close brackets for us. So AI is great in many ways. Okay, so this is our weather server, right? So if you're following
Yep.
along, you should
Mm-hmm.
have come to here, and there's the complete code in case you get it wrong or in case I
Uh-huh.
typed it wrong.
Lovely.
Okay, now we're going to test it. This is the interesting point. Like, how do I see if it works? Well, this is really cool. And I've got the code in here. So I'm going to run this command in my terminal. So I'm going to open up a new terminal window and I'm going to copy paste it.
So
Now,
inspector, eh? I think they have a missed opportunity to call this thing Inspector Gadget. What do you think?
yeah. Now, if you're wondering, where am I getting this from? Again, this is coming from the, it's kind of hard to find, actually. I was scrolling down for ages to find it, but it's in this, it's in here. If I find inspector, inspector gadget, right? So this is, you can find it in here, and there's some examples there. And, but
It's
basically,
also it's also a separate GitHub repo. So if people really want to dive in to see all the capabilities of the inspector, you can definitely go to
exactly.
that repo.
And you're probably thinking, like, what's this going to do? Like, I'm going to show you. But we need this command. And if you look at that, there's two commands here. One command is I'm going to open the Model Context Protocol Inspector. And the other one is I'm going to open my server, which is main TS. So if you are building along and you've called it weatherserver.ts, then you need to change that file name, right? Because this is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And TSX is just the, like, to be able to compile that TypeScript because we're using TypeScript.
This is an interesting way of doing it because I think I was doing it the hard way. I was actually compiling the TypeScript into JavaScript and then I was giving it the full executable. So I was doing it the hard way.
No
So thanks for
way.
showing that.
Oh my God. No, do things the hard way. Okay, so basically what we have here is a server has started. We're starting the MCP inspector and there's a session token and it's opened up a browser. And basically we have, like, if I click on this, it will open up now. It did it in another window. Always does this, but I can pull it across. There we go.
It's somewhere. There it is.
There it is. Exactly. I found you. So this is you can see I have the transport type that we created. Okay. There's others ones if we wanted to, like HTTP. We're just doing standard in. And then we've got the npx command. And this is our arguments to basically open up what we want. And we can just go and press connect. Now, if you do get errors in here, go to the configuration and make sure your proxy session token is in
Oh,
there.
nice. It's actually pasted that, and that's because you clicked the link with the URL that had that on the
Exactly. But the first
query
time I
parameter.
didn't and it wasn't working, I was like, what? And it's like,
I
Debbie,
know.
you never read the things properly. And there was a link there
TLDR,
for
right?
you. Yes. Now up here, I've only got tools because I didn't, do anything else really, just tools. So I need to go ahead and click this button called list tools. Is this zoomed in? I could zoom in a bit more. There we go. So I have the get weather tool. That is what we created.
Mm-hmm.
Now I click on that tool. We have over here this get weather tool to get the weather from a city. That's the text, the description we put in. And the name of the city to get the weather for it. Let's put in, where are you, Chris?
London, actually.
London. Would you believe that today the weather in London is sunny?
There's no way. It's gray outside, so I don't know what that day is. But
and this works exactly as expected because the weather in everyone else, where in the world are you in? Give me your city quickly. Give me your city. So whatever city you are in the world, it's going to be sunny. Let's do Tokyo. I love Tokyo.
oh yeah.
So basically, there you go. That's exactly what we built. LA. All right, let's do LA. I can do LA.
Mm-hmm.
Can I understand LA? The weather in LA is sunny. There you go.
Well, there
now
you go.
And you can see my history here. You could go to the whole history of all the calls. So this is really, really nice for understanding and testing out the server as you're building along. San Francisco. Okay, well, you know what?
Ooh,
Hold on to those city
Rio.
names. I'm going to pull out a few in a minute, but let's make this really exciting because it's not sunny in London. So this is wrong. This MCP weather server is just not very good. So let's
Oh,
make a better one.
Leeds. There's someone. I hope Leeds has sunny weather because London ate it.
Well,
So, but
let's go ahead and improve this. Let's actually make dynamic data. Now,
oh yeah,
we covered this. So if you're following along in the actual repo, what we're going to do is we're going to use the openmeteo.com. Now, it's really nice. I have it open. Let me pull this down
somewhere.
to here. There we go. Somewhere. This is this free weather. I love free tools, by the way.
Yeah.
Free weather API, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to the weather API. And I'm going to do this a little bit quickly just to save time. And, but I want to just point out we need to use the geocoding API before we use the weather forecast API, because weather forecast APIs expect a latitude and longitude, and we have a city name. And I'm not going to ask people to put in natural English what's the longitude of where you live, because you'd never do that. So I need to go geocoding to get that API call first, right?
Ooh.
And you can see here that the Berlin, and there's a little that's like basically what I'm going to copy and paste in. That's how I'm getting that. But you can see it puts in, name is Berlin, whatever. But I want to basically get, the city. So let's dive into how I'm doing that. So, yeah, this is, now my screen is so big that I can't even see anything anymore.
I think you can probably decrease it a little bit. I think someone said it was fine size-wise.
Oh, okay, great. Hopefully this is okay because it just makes it a little bit easier to see. So we're using the geocoding endpoint, and you can see that the city in here. So I'm going to just, we have a try fetch in here. We probably should, will I turn my next edit suggestions on? No, it's on again. Yes. So I'm going to be saved by the gods. So our server tool doesn't need to change. That's fine. What needs to change is our function.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just go down here and I'm going to put fetch geocoding data, right? And I'm just going to get some space. So I have, now you can see that it's already going ahead and doing stuff, but I'm going to try and do a little bit myself. So we want to say const response, right? We want to do equals await fetch. And I'm obviously not going to trust.
So someone's been training it heavily on the weather API, I think.
Sometimes, well, yeah. So it is able to read also from my files because I've got it in here. So it's very clever because it knows the real answers are in here. But it's fine because I showed you how to get that. And the only thing I did was I changed Berlin here to city, right? So that's what we need to do. We need to change that to the dynamic data, okay?
Yep.
And then we need to do const data equals await response.json.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we can do an if, and if the data doesn't match, if the city doesn't exist, for example, to return an error. Okay. I don't think I'm going to type all this out. I'm just going to go tab and hope for the best. Tab. Did I even do that right? It didn't. See, sometimes it doesn't. Does that even do that right? Throw new error, no results found for city. But it's actually wrong because it needs to return the right thing. So that's why you have to always make sure if you're going to tab along, make sure, like you said before, Chris, it's got to have it in this way, in the content type text. This is really important.
So for example, now, if you were to go to line 15 here and change city to like C, I think next edit suggestion would actually save us by suggesting edits on all the other places, right?
Sorry. If I went up here and typed C.
Yeah. If you change the name there to C, and then you just started tabbing, it would actually identify where in my code do changes need to happen, right? So if you were to name that something else.
Yeah, but I don't like putting C's. No, because that's super confusing. I like putting city and making it clear. All these people put E's 100%. For events and stuff. I like putting event. I'm one of those people.
I agree with you. I just noticed when I start adding tools, like similar tools, like I can just copy paste whatever I have, and then I start changing that other tool, and that AI feature is really saving me from typing quite a lot of things, right?
No, it is. It is. It definitely is. Right. The next thing we need to do is the actual other API, right? Because we've got our data. Now, again, there's a try catch in there, and I've just totally skipped that. But go ahead and do that.
So,
Here to be weather data
we
using
have a
the toolkit.
good question here from a listener. So they're saying, what happens if the fetch request fails or the API is down? So what's super cool is about the MCP is that it's actually always responding with JSON RPC responses. So whether you give it a good response from saying, hey, it's sunny in Palma, or you're saying, sorry, error, it's still going to respond with the JSON RPC. And this is part of the SDK response. So in the SDK response, there's going to be a JSON RPC response, and either going to populate a property that says here's your actual value, or there's an error property. So, and this is the cool part of the SDK. It's actually going to wrap the response. So you don't need to care about, doing anything else than actually throw an exception like you're doing right now. So hopefully that answered it for you all, that what is happening under the hood is that JSON RPC messages are being sent regardless. And the only thing you need to focus on as a developer is give it a good response or give it an error, right?
Yes. Thank you for that. And while you were doing that, I was just clicking away just to show you how this API works. But basically, you can just click away at what you want. There's a load of information here, right? You can even have the UX, UV index, and all that kind of stuff. So play around with that, and that just generates this down here for you that you can just copy along, and you can see that it has latitude and longitude in there. Just to save time, I've copied it in, and I've made the latitude and longitude dynamic. That's why it's screaming at me here. And that's as simple as that. And you can see like what I've selected, right? That's in the actual API call.
Yep.
Actually, just to quickly show you, this is really hard to actually copy, but I can just quickly. Yeah, it's really hard to copy. It's like, why is there no copy button? Open a new tab. Or, look at that. We don't read documentation. Open a new tab to copy this URL. Like, right, there you go.
Whoa.
See, I didn't read. This is what I'm giving, right? This is what we're getting back from the API, right? It's like,
I bet you could combine this with Playwright MCP, right? And it's like extract the information for me, maybe.
Well, I don't need to do that. I'm going to use my server to do that. But anyway, I just wanted to show you that we're getting this JSON back, right? So now what I need to do is, after I've done my weather response, I need to do, let's do a weather. All right. Okay. I'll just tab along. Weather data equals await the response.json. I just showed you the JSON. Now I'm just telling it, here's your JSON, right?
Yep.
And then this is the funky part. Instead of saying that the static stuff in here, right? Let's remove that static stuff in there. And my computer opened up a dictionary. I'm like, no, that's not what I want to do right now. I do not want to learn anything in English. Right. Now
we have someone on the stream telling us that we could have triple clicked the text box on the webpage. I don't know if that works, but
yeah, I know. I seen the thing, and a triple click. I didn't know that, but I seen the link. But I did not know that. I've been copying and pasting for so long in this demo. So thank you.
If that works, totally that's yeah.
Should we try that? Right. So it's basically next edit suggestions is like saying this is the one you want, and I'm like, yeah, okay, go ahead. So I'm basically changed that static text to a JSON. I'm stringifying it to call the weather data, which is basically my JSON. And that's basically all I'm doing, right? So that's it. If that makes sense. Now, the longitude and longitude, I didn't put in. I think I've missed that step somehow in this tutorial. So I'm going to have to go ahead and do that from the main file. I'll go ahead. Let me open up there. This is why you said, isn't it? This is why you said you need this. There was it. I missed that file. But see, live coding. So that's it could have just suggested that for me.
It could have, but it chose not to. So I mean, AI, right?
So basically, the latitude and longitude is just the data that we return from up here, right? When we return this data.result, we're just getting it, and we're getting the first one back basically from our results. So that's in there. I'll update in that README, but if you're missing that part in there, just add that in. So now, do you think it works? I could totally just copy the one that works over, but
I
this
mean,
is
do you have
basically,
any? If you have any angry squigglies, probably not, but I don't see them, so there is a chance it works.
there's a chance it works. So I'm hoping. So let's go along and open our chat. Let's create a new chat just so we have everything new. And let's go along here and make sure that our weather tool is selected, right? Because I had it selected earlier, but if not, you might need to actually do this, because I'll show you in a minute actually how to set up this locally, because you're not going to have this. I have this because I've already set it up. But let's just see if it works first, right? And then I'll show you how to set it up.
Moment of
Now,
truth. So we want to do London, Palma, Leeds. What do you think?
let's not even do it in VS Code. Let's actually go
Ooh.
back to our inspector, right? This is really the funky thing about here, that we have this inspector tool and we can just press restart, right? Because I've changed something. I've still got that one tool, get weather. And now I want to run that weather. Now I'm going to go back to this chat. And what you said Leeds, did you? Let's have a look at Leeds. Leeds is not very exciting. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, people in Leeds.
Ouch,
I actually went to the University of Leeds. It has a great bar, lots of beer, and that's the biggest bar in a university I've ever seen.
Leeds, we have beer. That's why here.
Yes, but the weather is not exciting. But look at that. We have the latitude, longitude, and we have the time zone, GMT, and we have all this stuff, and this current, and the time, and the showers, and the blah, 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 blah. That's a lot of information to parse. Let me take another more amazing city. I'm a big fan of San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
I just love it. I can never spell it right.
No. I think that's honestly why people call it the Bay Area, because they don't know how to spell either.
So San Francisco, this is you. This is your weather at the moment.
How much is it? Can we see?
See, this is the problem. It's really hard to read all this, right?
Apparent temperature 15, right? 15 degrees. That's cold.
Yeah. So yeah, not very warm. And let's just do one more. Port Blair. Let's do Port Blair, just so that you can see that I'm not making this up. Where on earth is Port Blair? Please tell me. And tell me, is this correct? Yeah. Port Blair. You are, what are you? 28.5.
It says apparent temperature 31. I think I'm going to pack my bags towards Port Blair, to be honest.
Yes. I don't know where it is, though. So you're going to have to get an MCP server to tell me where it is to get the plane ticket. Anyway, it works in here, right? But this is the thing. This MCP inspector has no AI, okay? It just is a tool for us to get data, return data, and you see in the JSON all that stuff I want back. And then the cool thing is, go on.
I think my eyes are bleeding from all the JSON, so you're going to take that away, right?
Yeah. Port Blair is in India. Thank you. I really want to go to India. Indian food is my favorite food, by the way. So India is definitely on my list of places I want to go. So let's go and now say, what's the weather like in Port Blair? Okay. Did it? Is it going to work? Come on. Yes, it's calling the tool. The city is Port Blair. And I'm going to press continue. And here we go.
It just took away the JSON, right? It's just human language.
Human language. Now, I'm not going to say your name. I will say your name. Yuva Bharati. Is this the correct weather in Port Blair? Right. That is basically my weather server. Now I can actually, let's go up there. Let's change the weather. I know any other cities that you saw in there that were nice. We could go to Leeds again.
Maybe we can do a sanity check and see if London is actually grey, like I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I'm going to do allow in this session, so I don't have to press this button all the time. That's a safer way of just like saying it. So Leeds today. Oh my gosh, 14 to 15 degree temperatures. 21, yeah. That's not bad for Leeds. That's not
I'm not going there, though. I know you promised beer and stuff, but 14, 15, too cold.
I do love London. I used to live in London, actually. I love London. Best year of my life living in London. I was 21. I won't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've been here 9 years. No complaints. So,
that's not bad for London. 24 degrees.
Uh-huh.
Morning cold, 16. Yeah. Okay. Yes. We confirmed that the weather was correct in Port Blair. That's great. Thank you. Manila. Let's do Manila. And then we'll stop asking can you see though how cool this is, right? This is what I want to just show you that while I'm in VS Code encoding, I can just get the weather. And I just think this is a really cool tool. But you could be anything. That could be something different. And you could get the next 7 days. You could get whatever. And you saw how minimum amount of code that was, right?
Mm.
So I want you to take away from
So
this. That's cool. Rainy
I'm,
season.
I'm,
Sorry,
think, I'm
Manila.
yeah, I'm thinking we should. Do you think we could show people how you input an API key, because they might not want that in code? So I think we have some ideas how you could do that, right?
Well, I just actually wanted to go back. I want to close the chat for a second. And I just wanted to, use in VS Code because I do have this section here. And this is
Oh
what
yeah,
you
let's do it.
showed, which is basically when you open the command panel. That's my command panel
Mm-hmm.
open. And you put add MCP server. And then you click on
Oh yeah.
this. And then it says use featured MCP servers, create a new MCP server,
Ooh.
connect to an existing MCP server. Okay, so you can choose the one that you want. Oh, I'm just like clicking the wrong things. So create a new MCP server, TypeScript weather, right? And then
Ooh.
it's gonna, because I already have this in, I'm gonna get confused in here by clicking all that, but I'm gonna show you the actual file that it created once, because I've already got it installed, right? But you would enter
Yep.
in the local server using stdio and the
Uh-huh.
npx, and then give it a name, right? And then you will get this.
Nice.
Now, the
Oh
great
yeah.
thing about this, you can see it's already running. I could stop it, I can restart it, just like I could in the MCP inspector. And these are my arguments. So we saw the arguments we needed. Now, if I wanted to use this in other repos, I could leave this locally and basically
Mm-hmm.
just like have a path to it so it knows to go to this, right? But at the moment, I'm just using this in this particular repo, right?
Mm.
And then you could go ahead and like you could totally just put this in an npm package and share it with the world, and then like have it always that's the thing, right? Your local one is, Chris, you can't use this. This is mine,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes you might want to have local stuff. But if I want Chris to share this and get the weather as well, I can actually just create this in npm package, and then he can go and use this MPC server with this with these commands.
Yeah, I mean that's super cool. I think that's the part I really love about MPX, right? It has its footprint is so small. I mean, it installs it, and once you're done with it, it gets cleared out. And today we talked about standard IO, right, which is one of many transports. But if I wanted to share it, just like Microsoft Docs, as I was showing, I could select another transport. I don't think we have probably time to explain that, but there are other transports if you want that server to be up and running somewhere. So you could be choosing something like SSE or streamable HTTP, for example. But this is a great way to start. Like you have to start
It's
somewhere,
really easy,
right?
isn't
And
it? It's really easy. It's
yeah,
like one
hundred
file,
percent.
it's one function. And you could, this is the thing that this tool, right? I could just add more tools in there, right? So I've got to get weather, but
Mm-hmm.
I could get 7-day weather, right? So you can add different things in there, and then expand it to make it really, really cool. And I know someone, I was sharing this with someone, and they went and created a UI out of it. So you could actually have your own UI if you felt that that was kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, and especially
um,
because you're using GitHub Copilot in agent mode, where you can just vibe code something and say, "Give me a UI for this," right? And then I'm sure it's going to
exactly.
produce something.
Exactly. But I'm going to probably stop sharing my screen so we can move it towards questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
so great question here. I just wanted to bring this up on screen. Can we customize the args in MCP JSON to pass dynamic inputs? Yeah, so you had the configuration section there as part of your MCP JSON. This is where you would input arguments, right? Because it could be like API keys and other stuff like that. And you might not want to make that static data as part of the JSON, which is why there's like an input property. And that would actually, via VS Code, create this prompt window. So you could paste your key, whatever you have. So there are ways to deal with configuration. I don't know if we got any good page to show you how to do that, but definitely it's part of your MCP JSON and your configuration in there. So you can definitely make things as dynamic as you need to.
yeah, that is a great question, I think, because I've seen some MCP servers do have them input things, and you're like, it makes it much easier. But I think we definitely should have better documentation on that, because I always find that difficult to show people where it is, like how to do it.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, I mean, MCP is very new still, right? I think I've only heard about it for the last, 3 to 6 months, or even shorter than that. So, bear with us. We are doing our utmost with videos like this, with documentation, just to make sure that you have the samples and documentation and whatever else you need. So, on that, actually tell us what you're missing. Like, if you're dealing with MCP already, let us know what we can do.
Yeah, and there was a question there. Did we answer it? What happens if the fetch request fails or the API is down? We didn't answer that, did we? No. So remember that when we said the fallback is what you put in there, right? So because you're creating that server. So I put that error message in, like if the city doesn't exist. And if I actually type it in there, you could actually say city Debbie, and I'll go, I'm sorry, Debbie doesn't exist. So you can create those kind of fallback things and give it the information. But I don't know about if the internet is down. Well, then you just don't have access to the LLM. So,
Yeah,
how would you?
So I would say this, and I was trying to say that before, but there's an SDK, right? And it wraps everything that Deb has been coding so far. So if it's a good response, it's going to wrap it in a certain JSON RPC and populate the value property. If it's an exception that you raise, it's going to populate an error property. So in that sense, it's handling the fetch request, because I think in that code of yours, you were actually raising an exception if something goes wrong. So you will always see a nice JSON RPC response back as a client. So but if you're using an SDK, of course, you need to be handling that on the client side of things. But if you're using VS Code, that's just going to be handled elegantly, because VS Code is awesome.
Yes.
There is another question also here at the bottom, and I think we try to answer that one. Is there a way to prompt for input at runtime instead of hard coding args? And yeah, we were trying to say that before. As part of your configuration in MCP JSON, you can set that input property, and that would dynamically in runtime ask for API key or whatever else you need. And then you can just refer to environment variables as part of your code. More questions coming. Let's see here. The LLM chat window reports the MCP server didn't respond in a timely manner.
Exactly. So he's answering basically what someone else answered. Like Copilot will tell you, that the MCP servers didn't respond. So it times out, right? It timed out. It couldn't get it, so it will tell us.
Yeah, I think there are 4 or 5 different error codes that you can possibly get from the MCP protocol, and which corresponds to something went wrong, right? Either on the client or the server side.
And so Shannon asked, where can you deploy the server? Now, I already said NPM. Is there another place you can deploy the server to, Chris?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're doing it in .NET, you can deploy it to NuGet, but that's very, it's kind of the same, but different as NPM. But you can definitely deploy it on Azure, right?
Mm-hmm. What about Docker?
Sorry?
What about Docker? Can you use Docker?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely use Docker as part of this. A lot of MCP servers out there are already running via Docker. So, but of course, I mean, that's definitely a way to do it.
So there's loads of ways. It depends on the SDK you're using. It depends on what you're building. But NPM is the go-to for deploying your MCP server if you're using JavaScript.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think when you think about stuff like Azure and cloud, you probably think about it in an enterprise context. I want this to serve my end users.
I do,
I mean,
but I'm just Debbie, and I want to deploy my weather. Would you say use?
No,
No.
totally. And honestly, today we're all friends. We're all happy builders, right? And we want to share tools with each other. So I think your recommendation on MPX is probably a fantastic way, and NPM is a fantastic way to get started. Like, share what you learn with the world.
I should deploy it
accessible. I
should totally
right?
deploy it. I call it Debbie's weather.
So another question here. Can we hook into the MCP lifecycle to modify or validate input arguments? This is a fantastic question and we didn't explain SOD properly. I think you tried to, but here's the thing. SOD actually validates the input arguments. So every time you wrote string or number or, this is required or optional, that's actually what SOD does for you. So it is validating the input arguments, and you could even hook in a regex kind of validator if that's what you need as well. So SOD is super powerful. So if you haven't heard of that, check that out, because it's actually what the MCP server is using. But as for hooking it into the MCP lifecycle, yeah, so there's another way of authoring servers than we're doing today, which is a low-level version. And in that low-level version, we are dealing with the lower-level server object, so you can totally hook into that. So instead of defining tools like you were doing today, Debbie, you can actually say, well, for all calls to tools or resources, I will handle it. And that gives you a chance to go even deeper. So check for low level when it comes to model context protocol, and you will be able to see an alternate version of doing it. But beware, if you have more responsibility of handling things, you have to write a lot more. So if you just want to be awesome and have something to share like Debbie's doing today, you might want to stay here. But there's definitely a more low level way of doing this. Let's see here. Okay, so we have another question here. For example, based on user context or environment variables like setting defaults or rejecting invalid inputs before they hit the handler. Yeah, this is what I was saying. This is what the low-level server scenario will be able to handle, right? So I've definitely written a few of those, and we don't have a lesson yet on the curriculum, but it's definitely the next lesson coming. So we want to show you how to do that. But for setting default values, you can do that with SOD. For rejecting invalid inputs, you can also do that with SOD, but it depends on what level. Like if you see, like, for example, that someone's coming from an IP range, that might be a very custom scenario, right? That's way more than just saying this is not a valid string or a valid number. So you can definitely hook in very early in the life cycle process if you wanted to. Yeah. So this is a great curriculum thing that Katie was sharing for the MCP for beginners. But let me crack on that, and I promise you all, I'm making a promise to you all live, I will write that lesson by the end of the week for low-level server handling. But before that, maybe you can show the SDK documentation in the GitHub repo, because it's already covered there. I think if you're able to pull open the README file for the SDK, there's a section there that talks about low-level usage. So I just wanted to show you what's there, but obviously our lesson is going to be better because it's going to have, fantastic examples and everything else. So if you scroll a little bit here on the main README, it's going to talk about low-level usage.
Low-level server?
Yeah, that one. So here you can actually intercept requests by set request handle. So for example, if you want to intercept all list prompts or all call prompt or all, calls of a certain type, you can come in very early in the life cycle and just intercept that request and say, no, I'm not even going to deal with you. I'm not going to send you to the MCP server. Out you go. So this is an alternate way of doing it, but there's a lot more responsibility on you to type more. So if your takeaway from today is to type less, you don't want to go down this route. But I understand. A lot of you work at big enterprise companies. You have very specific asks. And then I would point you towards this low-level server. So if that's what you need, know that this is an alternate approach.
Cool.
What else? So hello, GitHub Copilot shows metrics about requests made by each MCP used. Well, I mean, GitHub Copilot is pretty awesome, right? I mean, it's implementing large parts of the MCP protocol. We even have stuff like sampling that we haven't even covered today because it's an advanced topic. But VS Code has one of the most complete implementations of the MCP protocol and definitely shows us metrics about requests and a lot of other things. I believe there's a log file. I can't remember. Do you remember, Deb? That there's a log file on all the interaction somewhere?
I was going to say, do you mean this this kind of like new thing in VS Code where you can see premium requests? That's kind of one way of checking how you request. This is just clicking on this little icon here where we snoozed before. Remember the edits? Did you know about that?
Oh, I love that.
Super new.
No, I didn't.
Super new. So you could
cool.
Start using it and then you could check those requests. I'm at 12.6. So, I've got some time left before August to use more requests. But yeah, that's
cool. So question here about integrating BDD and Cucumber tests with MCP server for testing. So we didn't talk so much about testing so far, but yes, the inspector, but you can definitely write your own unit tests and BDD tests that's able to talk to MCP server instances. But when you do that, I think the best thing you can do when it comes to being set up for tests is, yes, we have a unit testing lesson in the curriculum, but there's also in the SDK, it's going to show you, if you look through tests, it will show you how to create your server instance, how to add tools, and how to write unit tests for it. So when it comes to BDD and Cucumber testing, right? I mean, you write these high-level sentences, and that is going to connect to a part of your code. So I would say this: as an engineer, you can make that work, but we don't currently have a lesson that shows that easily. So I'll take that on my shoulder also to see if we can write a lesson on that, and maybe we can have a video on that, right?
Can I jump in here? And I'm going to
Oh yeah, please.
and maybe offend a few people, and I'm very sorry for my offense. Straightforward, but I'm just going to say, with the way the world is going with MCP servers, do we need Cucumber? Because now I know, I'm sorry. Because, and I don't mean that in a bad way. There's a lot of people out there doing great stuff with Cucumber and they're doing great and their tests are written. But if you're starting out, you can actually use the MCP server and give it natural English language and basically say, hey, can you go and test this website? And I've got a couple of videos. If you want to check out my website, debbie.codes, and just follow me on YouTube, I've got some videos showing you exactly that. And I have some prompts in the GitHub Copilot, awesome Copilot repo to help you along with that. So you can basically just say, go to my website, test this feature out, and you can even just say explore, like find some tests, generate some ideas of what should be tested on this website, and it will do it for you. So there's a lot of really cool things that you can do around the testing scene that maybe, and I don't mean anything bad against Cucumber, I just mean, why do we have to learn something, how something should be written, when we could just use the language that we know how to speak? And if we could do that, the LLM can understand us, and Playwright MCP can understand that. Bang, we've got tests. No overhead. I don't know. Just put an idea out there.
Honestly, I think the whole paradigm is shifting, right? I mean, we do prompts, and if it needs to write Cucumber, go write Cucumber. If it needs to write unit test based on my prompt, do it. Just don't show me. I don't care, right? So I love this attitude because it tells us that we as human, we have better things to do, right? We are high-level prompt people.
Yes.
There are some other great questions here about hot reload. So I know that this is possible if you use the Python version, because then you're using like UV-corn to start up the server with a -- reload argument. But I'm unsure if you have something similar for TypeScript, do we?
I don't know. I mean, are we talking about the actual Playwright, the inspector for the MCP inspector? Because I'm not sure if that
I think we are talking about starting up an MCP server generally from the terminal, and if that has some kind of reload argument. So once you add a tool or change it, it's just
it comes up in highlights for you, and you have to click it yourself because it tells you
right.
There's a new tool and stuff.
What's the name of that other tool that you can run in Node.js that's actually going to help you with that, with hot reload?
I would just ask Copilot that question.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I no longer need to have it. So there's a question about Azure Functions. Are Azure Functions able to deploy MCP servers? I would say the answer is yes, but I would prefix this to say that it's early days. You can definitely use Azure Functions with MCP, but it's early days, so I would wait a little bit. I would test it out, but I know the folks over at Azure Functions are working really hard to make that well functioning, but today they're just saying, try it out, but wait. More is coming. Actually, one of our recommendations for putting MCP on Azure in the first place is Azure Container Apps. We have a lot of samples that covers it, how to do it that way. What else? Do you see any more questions here? Yeah. I think, Vipul, you were really making our point for us, right? You were saying, alternatively, the LLM can write Cucumber so that Cucumber test results can be available to track solution. Exactly. We don't have to write it. The LLM does it. And if there's any takeaway today, is that what we don't remember, Copilot knows how to do, right?
Yes. And I think as well, with everything that we do, you have to just test things out, play around with it, and be curious and experiment. Whatever you think, you're not sure if it can do it, just give it a go, see what happens. Because some people say, can it do this? And I'm like, I don't know. Have you tried? And like, no. Like, just try it. Just ask it. Just ask it in your own English language or whatever language you're using. Copilot speaks various languages.
You know what I really love about Copilot? It's not like I don't like humans, but it has such a fantastic attitude when it says, hey, Chris, how you doing? Of course, I'll give you the answer. Versus a human who doesn't get their first coffee. And then they were like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to talk to you, Chris. Go away. So I can always trust my Copilot to be my best possible colleague, because not everyone is you, Debs, right?
Yes, but I will be honest, and sometimes it tells me, I did it all, Debbie. It's all done. I'm like, No, you didn't. Come on, you're missing so. So sometimes you have to kind of edge along, and so don't try. And I like to kind of tell people when they're working with AI, don't expect the AI to be perfect. We're not in a perfect world. We don't live in a perfect world. We are making sure that development is better, and we need to help the AI in our new world that we're living in. So just constantly check over. That's why I always say human in the loop, and check over everything and just make sure and say, yes, and just prompt it if it's not, and teach it. And the more you prompt, learning how to write the best prompt is really important. And then don't forget, you can have reusable prompts. You can save those as prompt files and reuse them again and again. So you don't have to remember, like, what's the weather like in Palma is a reusable prompt file. I don't have to type that in all the time. I can just press play on a prompt file, right? So things like that.
I just want to bring this other comment up online. It says, read the freaking manual is the typical human answer. And you know what? We have an MCP server for that, right? You all know about
Exactly.
it. It's the Microsoft Docs one. You can deal with it via VS Code, via its agent mode, and you don't have to talk to cranky humans ever again. NodeMon,
And
thank you so much.
NodeMon.
Oh my God. NodeMon is what you would be
I haven't
using for
used that
hot
in
reload.
so long.
I know, right? It's like an ancient tool. But yeah, it totally works well, and it would work well for this scenario as well. But yeah, I hope you all really enjoyed the stream here, because there's so much more we want to tell you folks. So keep giving us comments what else we can show with MCP, because this thing is not going away anytime soon. I can promise you that.
Yes, and we're here, but if you want us back for more things, let us know. Put in the chat and say like what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want more of, because we are here to support you in this MCP learning journey. So do check it out. There's if you don't speak English very well, you want to check other languages, or you're in this session looking at JavaScript, but there's also in C# and Python and Java. Check out the whole link there that Katie has up there, because it's really impressive the amount of streams that we're showing off. Like, you have no excuse to not do MCP. Even if you're like Korean, Japanese, we've got it all, right? So check out that page. It's really impressive. Any closing words, Chris?
I mean, honestly, I was really excited to see all that live code today, because I know live code is difficult, right? But you managed to pull it
Yes.
off. And I just love the fact that we have a result. And honestly, my eyes were bleeding seeing that JSON, but you just nicely brought that into VS Code, and out came something that I was able to look at, and happy days. So, and also what you were saying, Debs, share. Please build, please share, put it on available via MPX. We want to see what you build.
And build. That is the key word, Chris. If you've been watching this session, the link, Katie will pull that link up there, so you can go to that GitHub repo, and everything that we just showed is right there. You can just either just run it, just download it and run it, or you can actually go through it step by step. I want you to all build it yourself. Takes 20 minutes maximum. Take 20 minutes out of your day-to-day and just build the weather service. Just do that one thing, and then just tell me what you think, because you're just going to be amazed at how easy it is. You saw how it is, but the fact that you did it, you built it, do it.
Yep. Go build it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you sometime soon. Bye.
Sure. Bye-bye.